Voodoo is a spiritual and religious tradition where its roots can be traced back to West Africa. Voodoo evolved through combining elements of traditional African beliefs, Catholicism, and indigenous practices during the transatlantic slave trade. This included parts of the Caribbean, parts of the Americas like Haiti. But what's the first thing when you think of voodoo? Maybe it's a doll with all the pins stuck in it that can cause harm to a person, or maybe it's killing chickens, rituals, creating potions. But voodoo is actually supposed to be a legitimate spiritual tradition, focused on serving spirits, maintaining community connections, and seeking guidance through protection.
So there haven't been any crimes involving voodoo, right?
Maybe. Stick around.
Studio 70 sent us something. What is it?
A voodoo doll.
That was funny.
I think they like our present. Hey guys, do your own research. This is for educational purposes only. And if you didn't know, we have a new show out called
The Jump Scare.
The Jump Scare. So if you like scary stuff, now you're wondering, well, what is this jump scare? Don't worry about it. We got just a quick little promo. We'll be right back. Check this out. Join us at The Jump Scare, where we watch and react to scary and strange videos. But there's a twist. As you watch, we throw in our own jump scare videos to keep you on your toes. Do you have nerves of steel? Prove it by taking our challenge for some added fun. Watch with a full mug of water, preferably with our logo on it, and see if you can stay steady and dry. Please be safe by keeping the water at room temperature and holding the cup away from anything that can be ruined, like electronics. Let us know if you kept your cool or ended up all washed up. So today we're going to talk about Voodoo Crimes. And you said, there hasn't been any Voodoo Crimes, right? And I would think, it can't really be
exactly.
crime. But guess what? There are some. And we're going to start off with the video. Looks like it's a relatively new channel, I'm guessing. It's called Rogue Darkness. Please go check her out. I watched a couple of videos. Very, very good. We like to support other creators. So we decided, instead of creating our own intro videos to get things started, why don't we help promote our fellow creators?
Exactly.
And we're doing so today. So please go subscribe. I'm sure that would mean a lot to, I think it's Raven is her name, and the whole channel. So please start with that. So we're going to start with that, and we're going to talk with our Crime Force team, our AI investigation team, and they're going to be asked some questions. They're going to go into a little further about these cases. But let's start off with, this one's pretty old, but it's probably a good place to start. So let's get the ball rolling.
Welcome back to Rogue Darkness, the podcast that uncovers how the misinterpretations and misinformation surrounding witchcraft, the occult, and other beliefs have led many to do unthinkable crimes. From ritualistic killings and the demons that live in all of us, to exploration of the macabre and diving deep into the unknown.
Videos look familiar.
Let's explore the darkness of mankind, one crime at a time. I'm your host of the Grim and Gruesome, Raven. Let's go rogue and get right into today's chilling crime. The eerie case of Clementine Barnabet.
Yeah, she gets it from Pixel or Pixabay
now,
or whatever.
This case is actually pretty old, so some of the information is not completely clear regarding the history of the killer herself, as well as certain details of what led to the heinous crimes that were committed. But without further ado, let's start off from the very beginning. Back in 1894, in St. Martinville, Louisiana, a baby girl was born to Nina Porter and Raymond Barnabet. They named her Clementine. Clementine was also reported to have a brother named Zephyrin. The family of four eventually moved from St. Martinville to Lafayette in 1909. Being such an older case, not much was notated about Clementine's childhood, except for the fact that her father, Raymond, was apparently abusive to Nina, the mother, and the children. And whether it was physical or verbal abuse, that's unknown. But regardless, abuse had burdened the family and could have been a precursor to the events that would soon unfold. Between the years of 1911 and 1912, in surrounding towns along the Southern Pacific Railroad line running through Louisiana and Texas, there were reportedly 12 African American families who were brutally murdered in their homes. All the murders had reportedly occurred at night, and the murder weapon was found to be an axe, which was used to fracture the skulls of the victims, and that had each time been left
gross,
at the
man.
crime scenes.
That's a brutal way to...
Upon investigation, Raymond Barnabet, Clementine's father, was arrested on suspicion of murdering the 4 members of the Andrews family
crazy.
who had been killed in February 1911 in
But what was the
Lafayette.
reason?
1911. Yeah.
Raymond was later released due to insufficient evidence, but then was rearrested a few months later and ultimately convicted of the Andrews murders. Clementine and her brother Zephyrin both testified in court against their father, claiming he had returned home on the night of the murders with bloodied clothes, and that he had been even boasting about committing the crimes, reportedly announcing that he had, quote-unquote, killed the whole damn Andrews family.
Curious to see what the voodoo part
It
of
was
this
believed
is
by
gonna be.
many that Raymond had actually committed the murders because it was very uncommon
Yeah,
for
that's what I'm
children
waiting
to
for.
testify
Like,
against
what
their
does that
parents
do with
in
voodoo?
court.
Yeah.
Clementine and Zephyrin believed it was better for everyone if their father, who had been a lifelong criminal, was left behind bars. Clementine and Zephyrin also reportedly claimed that they were terrified of their father, and for their safety, he should remain in prison. In October 1911, a Louisiana jury convicted Raymond Barnabet of the murders. This conviction did not last long, however, since more murders continued to occur even while he was in prison.
See?
Due to this,
That's
the
messed
people
up.
of Lafayette prodded law enforcement to look into other members of the Barnabet family as the potential killer. On November 27, 1911, the bodies of Norbert Randall, his wife Azima, and their 4 children were found murdered inside their home. Like the other victims, 18-year-old Albert Seiss, 6-year-old Renee Randall, 5-year-old Norbert Jr.,
That's sick.
and 2-year-old Agnes had been beaten to death with the blunt side of an
Wow.
axe.
Axe.
But what's the
Norbert
reason
had been
behind
shot
it?
in the
What's the
head
voodoo
before he
part
was
of this?
also ultimately beaten with the
I'm like in
axe.
suspense right now.
As with the previous murders, the murder weapon was found at the crime scene, but authorities discovered
wasn't
that
a
this
gun.
axe had been partially washed after the murders had taken place.
I'll think.
Already under suspicion for being potentially connected with the murders, and that she had lived just a few blocks away from the Randall family, Clementine soon became the prime suspect linked to the murders and was brought in for further questioning, along with her brother Zephyrin. Much to law enforcement's confusion, though, while Clementine and her brother Zephyrin were both being held in custody, the axe murders continued to occur.
So who is doing these murders?
In January
That's
of
one
1912,
part, yeah.
the Broussard family of Lake Charles, Louisiana, the father Felix, his wife, and their 3 children, were all attacked and brutally murdered with an axe, just like the other killings. It is reported
And
that the
that's hard to
specific
do.
crime scene was the most shocking of them all. It was this bloody murder that instilled immense fear in the townspeople and authorities alike. The murder revealed that the murderer or murderers not only enjoyed killing, but that they utilized occult practices as a means to feel more powerful. The murdered Broussard children had reportedly had their blood drained into buckets left at the side of their beds.
Oh,
A message was written in blood on one of the home's walls. It said, "When he maketh the inquisition for blood, he forgetteth not the cry of the humble."
that's on his
The
forehead.
quote had been apparently from the novel Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Oh, I read that book. It's a good book.
The youngest victims had been apparently found with their fingers splayed and secured in place with pins. The words Human 5 were found scribbled at the crime scene as well.
I have to tell you
When
later.
details about the brutal crime scene reached the media reportedly ran with it and called the murders a sacrifice. The newspapers also dubbed the murderer or murderers as, quote-unquote, voodoo worshippers. These horrific murders still did not stop.
because it's distracting me. Their little subscribe Rogue Darkness is it's like a little blood stain. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
And it almost looks like our Studio 7.0 logo. It's similar. It's not the same, but similar. So I think it's pretty cool. Sorry, I got distracted. It's very similar. Ours is not meant to be a blood thing, I think. It's just meant to be, it's
kind of blood. That's
it's kind of like it. It's not purposely dripping blood, but it's, anyhow, sorry guys. Totally got distracted there for a second. I just noticed it. It's random.
Yeah.
Authorities from looking into Clementine and Zephyrin further, though. They decided to go back to the Barnabet home to see if there was any evidence there that could officially link one or both of them to the crimes. When the cops returned to the Barnabet family home in search of new evidence, they found what they had been looking for. At the home, they discovered blood on the door of Clementine's bedroom, as well as several sets of bloody clothing within her room. It was reported that some of the clothing was even soaked in blood, as well as brain matter.
Oh, jeez.
Being just 17 years old at the time of the murders, many people didn't believe Clementine could have been capable of committing such brutal murders. However, authorities proceeded to arrest Clementine based on the evidence found in the Barnabet home. It was reported that she would be sent to the same Lafayette Parish jail as her father, Raymond Barnabet. After much interrogation, Clementine finally confessed to a total of 35 murders. She explained that she was a member of a secret cult known as the Church of Sacrifice, which was an offshoot of a Christ-sanctified Holy Church congregation in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Clementine proceeded to tell authorities that a priestess from the Church of Sacrifice had given her and her friends conjure bags, which was a good luck charm that was commonly used among practitioners of hoodoo. The conjure bags would grant its holders supernatural powers and make them undetectable to the cops. The hoodoo affiliation is what supposedly spurred Clementine into committing her first murder. She claimed that she wanted to test whether or not the claim of magical protection was actually true.
But what was the reason?
Unfortunately, she had gone unseen and even unsuspected for quite some time while her father was being accused.
Wrong here.
During that time, Clementine and other members of the Church of Sacrifice continuously murdered innocent families, convinced that they were immune to legal action, as they were protected by their hoodoo conjure bags.
That makes no sense.
It doesn't.
The brutal slaying of the Broussard family was assumed to have been committed either by a member of the Church of Sacrifice or by a copycat killer. The identity of the actual killer or killers is still debated, and ultimately unknown to this day.
It could be multiple people. It could be her dad and her. Maybe he was
involved. It's also been reported that Clementine's confession was very self-contradictory, and that she would sometimes claim to have committed the murders alone, and then at other times to have committed the brutal crimes with an accomplice or a group.
Yeah, you could just get a boyfriend or something.
Many details are still unknown and uncertain to this day, and since the case occurred so long ago, there's not much else we can do besides speculate at this point. The main person who came forward and admitted to committing the heinous murders of 35 innocent victims was none other than Clementine Barnabet. Whether or not she did in fact have an accomplice or two during the murder she committed, or if she committed the crime solely on her own, we may never truly know. After her confession, Clementine was examined by several doctors, most of whom determined that she was perfectly sane. Due to the brutality of her crimes, Clementine was sent to the infamous Angola State Penitentiary.
Might be healthy, but not mentally.
On July 31st, 1913, Clementine reportedly tried to escape from prison, but was soon captured by officers on the same day. For whatever reason, the escape attempt was soon forgotten, and in 1918, Clementine was given the job of cane cutter. This position allowed Clementine to work outside of the prison, with minimal, if any, observation by the authorities. Just 5 years later, on August 28, 1923, Clementine Barnabet was released from Angola due to several years of apparent quote-unquote good behavior. That's shocking.
That's not true.
After her release, Clementine's whereabouts were not recorded and remain unknown to this day. It is not known if she is alive or dead, but she'd be about 127 years old if she was still alive.
Hey, maybe that voodoo stuff, she might be...
So that was the chilling case of Clementine Barnabet and how she misused and abused both voodoo and hoodoo to aid in brutally murdering several innocent victims. The scariest part of this case is that there's still so many what-ifs and uncertainty surrounding it. The fact that so many people used, and still do use, the label of witchcraft as a security blanket from the law, and their negative actions, is extremely disgusting. This case is absolutely shocking and heartbreaking on so many levels, and although it happened decades ago, my heart goes out to all the innocent lives lost. The mutilation of the bodies of the children really bothers me, and being a mother, I couldn't imagine the coldness and lack of empathy one must have to commit these horrific crimes. And then for her to get released from prison on good behavior, it's literally mind-boggling.
That is. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
But with that, let me know your thoughts on this case, and as always,
I
feel
have
free to
tons of
contact me
thoughts on
with
this
any
case.
questions or
I'm so
suggestions at
controversy.
roguedarknesspod@gmail.com.
All right, we're going to stop it there. Thank you so much,
So,
Rogue Darkness. Great job with that. Again, go subscribe. God, Shrek.
oh no, I'm just like, okay, so I definitely have, this does not have anything to do with the voodoo. They seem to mix voodoo with witchcraft, and those are two separate things. Voodoo is really known for medicine, healing. You know, it's a religion, and it's supposed to be, it's a positive religion. It's nothing to do with witchcraft.
Well, if I know people who are in witchcraft, and they would say the white witch, the white magic is like the same thing. It's paganism. They treat it like religion. They have the same type of thing.
They could be religion.
But you're right. They're a couple different things. They're not the same.
They're not the same.
Yeah.
Voodoo is voodoo, and if that's witchcraft is a religion too, that's a separate religion.
Thing.
That's not.
So
do not confuse the two.
Yeah.
Voodoo, and if I would have did this, I would have definitely got another perspective of what voodoo is. I mean, I know someone that actually went to Africa. Well, I don't know the person directly, but I was reading on a person went to Africa, spoke to the people about voodoo. Voodoo doesn't have any. Voodoo is about medicine. It's about healing. It's about, like they said, missing.
Well, that's why
children
it's part of it got mixed in with other things,
right? And it's all, and I think it's all being portrayed different from like the government. The government basically states, oh, that's why when they have those movies, I noticed they have movies about voodoo and the pending of the doll.
I don't think it's government. I think it's it comes. Remember the Salem witch trials? I think it all comes from the.
But when I say government, maybe I'm just saying the media itself, because sometimes when I look at
it's sensationalism,
right? Exactly.
On everything,
exactly.
Witchcraft,
and sometimes of
Christianity,
course it could not be that. Exactly,
paganism,
and it's the way that when we
everything.
look at these portrayed in movies or whatever vision we looking at it, it's like, is it actually what it is? And it's not really what it says. I mean, I
just gotta wait for you. You're on a roll, but
yeah, because
I want to get off this slide. But there's one thing I want to say. Let me move on, because the one thing I just want to get off the slide and move forward. Because the thing of it is, the one thing I want to say about her and her saying, she says she doesn't like the misinformation surrounding it. However, the one thing that I that sounds like a great thing for a show in terms of, showing that, because people do misuse things. But if somebody's saying they're doing it because they're involved in such and such group, even though it's a bad group, they're still doing it on behalf of that. So I don't think it's saying it's misinterpreting or misinformation around it. In other words, if I say I'm doing this because I'm doing it for this type of thing, or whatever, you're doing it for that reason. You're not misinterpreting that. It's not misinformation per se. The person may be using it in a bad way or not was intended for, but that's what they're saying. It's like saying, oh, I slayed somebody for the devil. You could say, well, that's misrepresenting Satanism. Well, if the person said they did on behalf of that, you have to.
Yeah,
it's complicated.
It is complicated,
but she did a great job. It looks like a new show. And
she gave definitely great.
I'm so sorry. I just want to. We can
I
save it for the end.
But like sometimes I just get so.
You get all man. Shirok has been on. If you watch the show for a while, Shirok is on fire this season. So watch out. And she's bringing up a lot of good stuff, and I love it. All right, what does Crime Force have to say? Has there been any more recent cases of voodoo crimes? Because, that was basically 1911. And I researched some before I asked Crime Force looking at this. And there were some from like 1930, 19-something. But what about the 21st century? So let's see what they find.
That would be good to know.
We have found crime cases involving voodoo practices in the 21st century.
Oh, wow.
So let's start with the unaliving of Addie Hall in 2006. The unaliving of Addie Hall is a tragic and shocking case that occurred in New Orleans, Louisiana. It involved Addie Hall, a 30-year-old bartender and poet, and her boyfriend, Zachary Bowen, a former Army veteran. Their tumultuous relationship culminated in a horrific crime that captured national attention due to its gruesome details and the disturbing aftermath. Addie Hall and Zachary Bowen began their relationship in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina in 2005. They gained some notoriety for staying in the French Quarter during the storm and for their free-spirited and bohemian lifestyle. The couple was known for their intense relationship, which was marked by highs of romance and creativity but also lows of arguments and instability, exacerbated by Zach's struggles with mental health and PTSD from his military service.
Interesting.
On October 5, 2006, during an argument in their shared apartment in the French Quarter, Zachary strangled Addie until she was unalive.
Wow.
After unaliving her, Zach dismembered her body and attempted to cover up the crime by scattering her remains in the apartment. He reportedly cooked some of the parts, but there was no evidence of cannibalism. Some interpreted these acts as ritualistic or mystical in nature, though there is no evidence suggesting Zach was practicing voodoo or any occult rituals. The use of voodoo in media narratives about the case appears to be largely speculative, rooted more in the city's cultural identity than in the actual events.
About the media.
See?
So it's, oh, this is a great follow-up question. It says, so it sounds like it was more to do with Zach's mental state rather than voodoo practices. So that's a great question, guys. Let's see what Crime Force has to say.
Well, Zach's actions following the unaliving were attributed to his severe mental health issues, including PTSD from his military service and a history of personal trauma, rather than any influence of voodoo or mysticism. Sensationalist reporting and public fascination with voodoo culture in New Orleans led to connections being drawn between the crime and mystical practices.
Goes back to what you said about
this is a common phenomenon in true crime cases from regions with strong cultural identities, where folklore and reality often merge in public perception. While voodoo is a significant cultural aspect of New Orleans, its connection to the unaliving of Addie Hall is more symbolic and narrative-driven than factual. The case itself was rooted in a deeply troubled relationship and mental health struggles, rather than mystical or ritualistic practices. The associations with voodoo largely reflect the city's cultural identity and the ways in which such crimes are interpreted through the lens of local folklore and media.
That was an interesting case, but it seems like, the voodoo aspect was more. I think maybe they showed up, the police, who knows, and maybe there was some like voodoo or traditional New Orleans stuff hanging around. So I would also like to know what else Crime Force has, because that one, it was 21st century, but that voodoo part was kind of suspicious. What do you think, Chirac? I don't think it was very much to do with voodoo.
I don't think it had anything to do with voodoo.
I did think so too. Let's see what else the Crime Force got.
And people like labeling things and being biased and stereotype. I'm just saying,
you're right.
Because it's like, oh, you hear a kid screaming and scream, oh, he has ADHD.
Oh, you're wearing this Black Panther shirt, so
I'm racist, whatever. But anyway.
All right, let's see what they got next.
Always just trying to label stuff. Okay, let's go.
I'm just kidding. I'm just teasing you. All right, let's see what else. Because I'm curious. I'm really excited. I want to see if they found anything else. Let's see.
I have another case that occurred in 2013.
Oh, nice.
Let's see it.
This was a significant incident occurred involving a teenager who attempted to shoot another individual based on beliefs related to voodoo. This event took place in the United States and highlighted the intersection of cultural beliefs, mental health issues, and violent behavior. The case drew attention not only for its violent nature but also for the underlying motivations that led to such an extreme action. The incident involved a 16-year-old boy from Florida who believed he was under the influence of a voodoo spell. He reportedly thought that this spell had been cast upon him by another teenager, which led him to feel compelled to retaliate violently. On March 29, 2013, he brought a firearm to school with the intention of shooting the individual he believed was responsible for his misfortunes.
Wow.
Fortunately, the situation did not escalate as planned. The intended victim was able to escape unharmed, and law enforcement intervened before any shots were fired. The authorities arrested the shooter shortly after discovering his intentions and confiscated the weapon. Following his arrest, the teenager faced serious legal repercussions. He was charged with several offenses, including attempted unaliving and possession of a firearm on school property. The case raised questions about juvenile justice and how mental health issues are addressed within this system. It also sparked discussions about how cultural beliefs can influence behavior, particularly among young individuals who may be more susceptible
That's
to
what I
such
practiced that.
influences.
Wow.
Okay.
So, I mean, again, you could say, okay, let's see what the question says. Did the teen really think the spell was on him, or was it some mental illness, or just trying? Oh, okay.
Trying
So
to
it's
hide
getting
the
to,
real
because
motive.
that's exactly what I was thinking. Does the teen
Right.
really have a spell? Was it him, or was, some mental illness, or just trying to hide some other real motive? Maybe you just say, hey, I thought the person had a spell on me, and that was this excuse to, commit the crime.
Voodoo is often misunderstood in popular culture. It is a complex religion with roots in African traditions and has various interpretations across different communities.
See?
In some
Interpretation.
cases, individuals may believe in the power of spells or curses as part of their cultural framework. This belief system can sometimes lead to irrational fears or actions when individuals perceive themselves as victims of malevolent forces. In this particular case, it appears that the teen's belief in being cursed contributed significantly to his decision-making process. Mental health professionals often emphasize that such beliefs can exacerbate underlying psychological issues, leading individuals to act out violently when they feel threatened or powerless. The aftermath of this incident prompted discussions among educators, parents, and mental health professionals about how best to address similar situations in schools. It underscored the importance of mental health support for teenagers and highlighted the need for educational programs that address cultural beliefs while promoting conflict resolution strategies. This event serves as a reminder of how deeply held beliefs, whether rooted in culture or personal experience, can lead to tragic outcomes if not properly understood or managed within society. The shooting attempt by a teenager over belief in a voodoo spell illustrates complex interactions between cultural beliefs and violent behavior. It emphasizes the necessity for comprehensive approaches that include mental health support and education on cultural sensitivity to prevent similar incidents from occurring in the future.
So I'm really pause there for a second. So it's complex because let's say for right wrong there's some mental issues, but so let's say that person was convinced, maybe the person told them they were under spell, who knows, but if that person has a strong conviction, that could drive them without the proper, and how do you catch something like that? It's kind of scary.
Yeah, it is.
So that's okay. I agree with this question, because do you have any recent cases that without a doubt is related to voodoo practices? Because the two cases have, the first one had a voodoo element, but it was more speculation.
Exactly.
The second one had a voodoo part of it in there, but that's because the person thought they had a spell put on them. But I'm wondering if there's anything else. So that's a great question to ask Crime Force.
Right. And like it said, voodoo, it was misinterpreted.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, how about the Brooklyn voodoo priestess case in 2014? In 2014, a high-profile criminal case emerged in Brooklyn, New York, involving a woman identified as a voodoo priestess.
Stomping ground.
Right.
The case garnered significant media attention due to its unusual circumstances and the intersection of cultural practices with serious criminal allegations. The individual at the center of this case was 45-year-old Margarita Maggie Mendez, who was accused of engaging in fraudulent activities under the guise of providing spiritual services.
Brother.
Mendez was charged with multiple counts of grand larceny and other related offenses. Prosecutors alleged that she exploited vulnerable individuals seeking help through voodoo rituals and spiritual guidance. According to reports, Mendez would convince her clients that they were cursed or suffering from negative energies, which could only be alleviated through her services. She allegedly charged substantial fees for these services, often demanding large sums of money for rituals that promised to remove curses or bring good fortune. Victims reported that Mendez used manipulative tactics to instill fear and urgency, leading them to believe that their lives were in jeopardy unless they followed her prescribed rituals. In some cases, she reportedly told clients that they needed to pay her significant amounts of money to perform cleansing rituals or to purchase specific items believed necessary for their spiritual well-being.
Not good.
The investigation into Mendez's activities began after several victims came forward with complaints about her practices. Law enforcement agencies conducted an inquiry into her operations, which ultimately led to her arrest. During the legal proceedings, prosecutors presented evidence showing how Mendez had defrauded multiple clients out of thousands of dollars. In court, Mendez maintained her innocence and claimed that she was genuinely trying to help those who sought her assistance. However, the prosecution argued that her actions constituted fraud rather than legitimate spiritual guidance. The case raised important questions about the legality and ethics surrounding alternative spiritual practices and how they can sometimes lead to exploitation. The Brooklyn voodoo priestess case highlighted broader issues regarding cultural beliefs in voodoo and other spiritual practices. Voodoo is often misunderstood in popular culture. It encompasses a rich tradition with various interpretations across different communities. While many practitioners engage in voodoo as a form of spirituality or healing, cases like Mendez's illustrate how individuals can exploit these beliefs for personal gain.
Just like
this incident also sparked discussions about the need for greater awareness regarding mental health and vulnerability among individuals seeking alternative forms of support. It emphasized the importance of educating communities about potential scams disguised as spiritual services. Following the legal proceedings against Mendez, there were calls for increased regulation around spiritual practitioners offering services that could potentially harm consumers financially or emotionally. The case served as a cautionary tale about the risks associated with seeking help from unregulated practitioners who may not have ethical standards or accountability.
Well, great job, Crime Force. Thanks for bringing up some of the cases that we want to know for 21st century. So that was really cool. Thank you. Oh my goodness, they do a good job. I'm sure there's other cases. We've only put in the algorithm for them to just answer those questions and provide some more information. So I'm sure there's more cases. And again, going back to what you said, Shrock, and I'll let you answer this. It's like that a lot of times it's not the religions. I mean, yes, there are some bad religions, I won't mention them here, give them popularity or mention them for that reason. But there's other ones that it's the people that misuse it for their evil deeds.
Exactly.
But go ahead, Shrock. I know you hit some things you want to say.
Right, and that's the same thing. And this one thing I really never knew. Like, I'm just gonna bring up something we talked about in the past, like the KKK. A lot of them went to church, and I was like, why would they go to church? And they prayed to, the God or whatever. But these were religious people. Like, if you religious, why would you murder and kill or beat up someone else? So this is just no black and white here. It's always just a lot of and it's the people itself, and it's just so much artifacts of what is definitely is being presented to them, and they're just basically grabbing that information and just taking it instead of just doing other things. But there's no black and white, and like you said, this is not just voodoo versus black, could say black magic or anything. It's a lot of religions just do that.
Oh yeah, look at the Bible. The Bible's the Bible. It's written as written. Not only do you have a lot of different denominations, but you have people that misuse that Bible and look for things in the Bible that are not really there. There's this group, which I won't mention their name, it has a lot of alphabets in it, let's say a lot of letters. They will refer, well, that's not the Jesus I know, or that's not the thing. But it's not biblical. There's nothing in the Bible that says what they preach. Right. It says the opposite, but they ignore it. So that's whole point is not to be negative, not to put down anybody. But what I'm saying is that if you take something that's written and ignore it and use it for your own means, you could do it for other things. Exactly. I think in the case of voodoo, there's some things you learn from, and then it gets sensationalized. Back in those early days when the country was being formed and there's a lot of superstition, things got mixed. You get mixed in the Catholicism with some of the voodoo practices and some storytelling, and things become real. And it's the same type of thing.
I agree with that as well. Yeah, because even the Bible is the Bible. Read what's in the Bible. Somebody came to me one day, was like, "Oh, this really supposed to mean this." No, it's supposed to mean exactly what it says in the Bible, not change the words. You do not change the words.
Right.
Of the Bible.
And you don't
whatever
say,
whatever it's written
well, we're going to ignore that one because we don't really believe in it. Now you're becoming God.
So you're carving out what you don't want to believe and just do what you... Yeah.
And we're bringing up an example because that's something that's firmly written. Now imagine if you don't have something firmly written, you're out in West Africa and you're doing trading there or something, or you're coming over with the slave trade and you're hearing some of the voodoo practices and you're mixing it with your own beliefs or what you hear or some somebody's creating stories, and now you don't have anything written, and now you can see how the imagination would run wild with some of the stuff. And there's some people, I'm sure, that you could see in the last story, people use it for their own means of making money, and that's been going on for forever.
Exactly.
But
Just
anyhow, that was interesting. We didn't get a chance to go. No, it's a long story. We didn't get. We were supposed to go to New Orleans, but there was issues with that weekend with some strikes and different travel things. So we had to unfortunately cancel that trip. Hopefully someday we'll definitely go back down there and check
that would
out.
Be a nice trip.
But yeah, we were wanting to get some footage down there, but have to be another time. But anyhow, guys, thank you so much. If you made it this far, please share, subscribe. We'd really love to see you guys again. And I hope you guys like the Crime Force, our AI investigation team. Check out the Jump Scare, our other channel, the other show we have going on. And we appreciate you.
Yes, we do. Thank you for watching Studio 7.0.
Later.